The following program is brought to you by Podcast One Sportsnet. Don't forget to download our new Podcast One app.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to purchase the gas station egg salad. Eat the gas station egg salad. And regret the gas station egg salad as you presented numbers to the board. To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 egg salad minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Uh-oh. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
You know what's not smart? Letting your friends pick your karaoke song. But you want to know what is smart? ZipRecruiter.com/Sonnen. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter does not wait for candidates to find you. ZipRecruiter finds them for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and it actively invites them to apply. That means you're going to get qualified candidates fast. No more sorting through the wrong resumes. No more waiting for the right candidates to apply. Take, for instance, our producer, Sean, at Podcast One. His friend went out there and opened up a coffee shop and was able to staff the establishment in just one day. Right now, for listeners of this show only, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Sonnen. And if you're out there on social media and you're using ZipRecruiter, tag us in a post and let us know. We will give you a shout out on this podcast. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Sonnen for a free trial. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
He's defeated every champion from every organization the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen, and retired from the octagon as the biggest draw and the industry's highest paid athlete of all time. And now Chael Sonnen's on PodcastOne.com. And for that, you're welcome.
Guys, I hope you don't have anywhere to be because we are going to be going for a while today. Let's start this off. What is happening, guys? Thank you for joining another special episode of You're Welcome. I got a lot to go over. I also got to give a little tease for you. We are going to have wrestling legend, Coach Dan Gable, is going to be joining the show. I want to get into this weekend, though, and I am going to cut right to the chase, which isn't even the main event. It was the post-main event. On ESPN Plus, Errol and the Bad Guy, Errol and I are there. We're doing our little thing. We're recapping the event. We're talking. Daniel Cormier comes and joins us. Now, Daniel Cormier is famous for what we call burying the lead, meaning Daniel will have a gem. He'll have a diamond in his hand, and he won't start with it. Well, he did that to us. So let me tell you how this goes. We're up there. We're finishing the show. Daniel's going to be the final segment, right? He's got to get done fighting. Errol and I go on as second his fight is done. So he's got to get in the back. He's got to go through commissions. He's got to get paid. He's got to get checked out. He's got to shower up. He's got to shake hands and kiss babies into the whole bit. Then at some point, they're going to grab him and work their way through the 3 levels of MSG to where we are, and we're going to have him on set. So there's a process here. There's some time. There's some things that are happening. So this is the very final moment of the very final day. There's not a human left in the building. They are tearing down the octagon behind us. This is literally the last thing we're going to do. And with the time change, don't forget, this is also 2 a.m. I'm just setting this up for you guys because I want you to have this from my perspective. Okay, I'm sitting there with Ariel. I have what's called an IFB. That is simply the earpiece, okay? The earpiece is in. In the earpiece, the show is being controlled from Bristol, Connecticut. So the director of the show, who's in the earpiece that Errol and I have, is telling us, hey, guys, this was great. Wrap the show. Thank Daniel, congratulate him, and send him on his way. We're going to fade to black and roll the credits. See you all later. Okay, great. So we get that message, and we start to do it, at which point he turns to me. Now, it was me directly, and he says, hey, Sonnen. I got to tell you guys, right, a lot of people are last name guys. Nobody calls me Sonnen. They just call me Chael. I think that's one of the things with having a unique first name is they never go to your last name. But anyway, he turns to me as though Ariel's not there, as though the cameras are not there, as though we are not doing a live show on ESPN. He says, hey, Sonnen, this is right after I'm told to get the hell out of there. We're done. Here's your hat. What's your hurry? He turns to me and says, hey, Sonnen, I almost couldn't do the fight today. Woke up this morning, I was going to go do a run. I do a run every day on fight day. I woke up, got out of bed, I sneezed, it threw my back out. A fight almost got called off. So he says, Errol, I looked at Errol. Errol's jaw has dropped. Errol can't form a word, if you guys could have met. Right. I'm now laughing. And the reason I'm laughing isn't at his pain. I'm just foreshadowing, what if he had not done this fight? And instead of Errol and I having Daniel on the set to commensurate and discuss the fight, instead Errol and I are doing a show about the fact that the fight was called off because the world heavyweight champion sneezed. So I'm now laughing, and in the IFB, we've got our director who heard him say this going, stay with the show, do not rap, stay with the show. So I turn to Daniel, excuse me, Daniel, what happened? So he goes, yeah, I'm kind of guilty of bearing the lead. Maybe I should have told you this, but I got out of bed, I was going to go run and do a workout. My team was waiting for me at the treadmill, and I sneezed and my back went out. So I don't know if that's a loose term. I don't know if that's literally his back is. I don't know what he said. I need more. So, as the story goes, he gets dressed and he stumbles down the hallway to the elevator and goes to the workout room of the hotel, which is where his team is waiting for him. He's not standing up straight. In fact, he's not even hunched over, guys. He's to the side. His back's out, and he's showing us. He's mimicking it, but he's hunched to the side. He can't stand up. So Bob Cook says, what the hell's this? And Daniel says, Bob, I don't know. I just sneezed, and my back went out. I can hardly move. So he gets on the treadmill. He does 2 steps and hits the off button. Says, Bob, this isn't going to work. I can't move. Oh, boy, what are we going to do? They lay him down. They call the UFC. The UFC sends in their medical team. There's like a 4-person team, and they put him on stim. And they do this for roughly an hour. And the only part of this story that I may be prevaricating from is the time. But I think he said it was like an hour of stim, and then they put him in 4 hours of a heated blanket. They wrapped it all the way around him, and they just laid him there, right? They laid him there like a burrito, and they didn't know what the end result was going to be. At 3 o'clock, they unwrap him. Now, to put in perspective for you guys, doors open at 4, all right? We are now at crunch time. Nobody even knows this is happening. And they do not know until they unwrap him if he's going to get on the bus and go to the arena. And it's out of his hands. At this point, Bob Cook has stepped in and said, I'm calling the fight off. Not you. I'm calling the fight off. And Daniel gets up from the blanket and he says, hey, I do feel better. And Bob goes, okay, great, prove it. Do the treadmill workout we came down here to do. And Daniel goes, look, let me meet you halfway. I think I could do the workout, but I also think it might be responsible to kind of ease into this. Let's do a walk. And Bob goes, okay, deal. So they do the walk, and, I mean, look, you guys know the rest from there. Everything worked out. But what a different day we could be having right now. How would I possibly present this story to you guys? That the heavyweight champion of the world sneezed and therefore could not defend at the world's biggest arena. How would I do that? Okay, great. That's done. I just wanted you guys to hear and enjoy and appreciate that story. If you're looking for the absolute best gear when it comes to competing, training, and recovery, Under Armour has created the best performing gear to make you better. Right now, they've got a new collection. It's called Perpetual. It offers a unique design and details to help improve the way your body moves. It hugs and flexes for better alignment and muscle awareness. And right now, Under Armour is also making an app available to you. It's called My Map Run, which you can sync to other devices like Garmin, Apple Watch, and Samsung smartwatch, or even the Under Armour's connected running shoes. Get your Under Armour gear. Go right now and download Under Armour's Map My Run in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store to get a 30-day free trial of the premium level for new users and take control of your goals today. I want to share this with you, though, too. And this is from speaking to Dan. Errol and I had Daniel on twice. Once the day before the weigh-ins, so the pre-show. And we also had him after the fact. And I also saw him a number of weeks ago before my last fight. I went out to his gym and did a workout, but it was a little one-on-one time with Daniel. The reason I offer that to you is there is something significantly different about the way he talks when he says, I'm only going to do 2 more fights. Now, I have shared with you guys my opinion on that. That, hey, look, nobody really knows when they're done. That's kind of a time frame. 2 fights is kind of, hey, I want to be done by my 40th birthday, which he also said. And if you look at that in relation to the birthday and in relation to how many fights that you get throughout the year, it equals 2. So my pushback was, look, Derek Lewis was an extra fight, okay? You weren't expecting to have it as you map out your career and you think that you're going to take on Brock Lesnar in roughly January. The birthday isn't until a little later in 2019. Even if we operate within that evidence, Derek Lewis' fight still doesn't count. Well, no, wrong. He's saying it does. But there's something different about the way he's saying it. He is saying that the Brock one will be his first fight. He is saying not only do I not need, not even looking to a trilogy with Jon Jones, but there is something different about the way he is saying it. There is something very matter of fact. This is the reality. Very candid, very open. There's no backdoor hustle going on here. There's no negotiating with Dana White, but using the media and my leaving of the sport to do. Not at all. In fact, he said, I'm going to do 2 more fights. Many of us assume that would be Brock Lesnar in perhaps January, and then Jon Jones later in the year, to which Daniel said, yeah, maybe. I don't. It's going to be 2 fights. I don't know who it's going to be. I do want the Brock one. They promised me that, and I've always wanted Brock, and in fairness, there's a lot of prestige to come from a name like Brock and a paycheck to come with it. He was very open about it. He was very honest. But he was also very open and honest, at least a way that made me believe enough to come and share with you guys that we're going to get to see him one more time. We're going to get to see him one more time. I had a very similar reaction. Again, fighters never know when they're done. Sometimes they are telling the truth. Sometimes they want to be begged. You see a lot of that too. Oh, no, you're so great. Please don't go. Yeah, there's that little kid aspect of it. And then largely, it is a negotiation. Largely, the negotiation begins. But I was not on this show, I was on Michael Bisping's show, which you guys should check out, by the way. He's a very good podcast, a lot of fun to listen to. But I was a guest on his show, and I turned the tables, and I asked him a question. I said, I don't think you're going to retire. I don't think you are retired, as a matter of fact. He's still working out. He's working out on the road doing shows. He's in the gym when he's at home. Those pictures are coming out on social media, and he hasn't gained a pound. Every fighter gains weight. Fighters gain weight between fights, let alone at retirement. Michael Bisping looks great. Said, I don't believe you. The way he responded, I knew he was telling the truth. Michael Bisping was done. I could tell by the way he responded there was no gamesmanship. I just have that same feeling enough to come and tell you guys, and I'm well aware that things change. Well aware. At least for right now. It is very sincere when Daniel Cormier says, I am going to fight Brock Lesnar, and then I am done. I thought that as you back up to the fight, too, and the last thing was the interview of the fight, and Daniel Cormier goes out there, and he has a lot of fun. He loves having that microphone. He loves working up the crowd for better or worse, and he has fun. But I did think that it was very important to just make sure he did one thing, which was to focus all of his venom and all of his effort and all of his words into Brock Lesnar and absolutely nothing else. And the reason for that is Jon Jones, who has now emerged, Brock Lesnar is starting to come out of John's mouth. And in the moving parts, in the competitiveness of what is mixed martial arts, things change. And it's the fans' reaction to certain things that create said change. So if Jon Jones is able to build enough energy and enough momentum that it should be him versus Brock, there is a chance, even if slight, that something along those lines could happen. I think that Daniel is protected. I think that that's a big fight. I thought they had a great promo after the Stipe DC fight. And I also think if you're going to get Brock back, having the world championship on the line is part of the deal, all of which favor Daniel Cormier. But I did think, strategically speaking, and he's been very open to say that is the fight I want, that it did make sense while John is now starting to speak up at least a little bit on Brock, that Daniel focus all of his efforts on Brock. And I think it's appropriate that he take Jon Jones out of his mouth. I've got no problem with that. There seems to be schoolyard antics trying to goat DC into sticking around and fighting Jon Jones. And people are using some very, very underhanded, very cold tactics to do it, which is simply his legacy. Hey, Daniel, your legacy will always be in question unless you go out there and you fight John Jones again. That's schoolyard. That's not right to do to him. His legacy is absolutely protected, guys. I mean, let's be real fair here. His legacy is protected. A two-division simultaneous champion who has now successfully defended both belts. He is safe. He is protected. Don't tell him that. Just because out of your own greed and your own excitement and your own curiosity and your own fun and your own fandom, to which you have every right to, that he has to go out and do something that is outside the parameters of what he wants to do. He was very open and honest to say, I will do 2 fights. He went a step further to say, those can be against anybody. Anybody you want. And yeah, it may be against John Jones, but it's still 2. Slipped Eric Lewis in there. Already has a promised fight with Brock Lesnar. Should the story end that way, and I'll say it a third time, yes, I'm well aware that things do change, but should the story end that way, we all in sportsmanship and fairness need to be able to admit the only reason that we are trying to goat him in and tease him and torment him into a third John Jones fight is not about his legacy. It is about our own selfish desire to see that contest one more time.
You're listening to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
Hey, it's Adam Carolla.
Hey, this is Kelty Knight from Lady Gang.
Hey, it's Steve Austin from the Steve Austin Show.
This is Heather Dubrow from Heather Dubrow's World.
Hey, this is Rob Riggle.
And Sarah Tiana from Wriggles Picks.
This is Caitlin Bristow from Off the Vine on Podcast One.
This Veterans Day, I'd like to give a special thanks to all those who've served in the armed forces.
From the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and the Reserves.
Because of your bravery, we can live without fear.
Because of your valor, we can soar into the bright future.
Because of your sacrifice, we don't have to sacrifice the liberties that we hold so dear.
We could not do it without you.
Thank you again for your service, and all of us at Podcast One hope you enjoy a safe holiday weekend.
When it comes to confidence, sometimes it's all about those simple adjustments that make all the difference. Our new sponsor, Hair Club, knows all about this, and they're inviting you to become part of the Hair Club family by seeing how getting the most out of your hair can change your life. Hair Club is the leader in total solutions with a legacy of success for over 4 decades. Whether you're looking to revitalize the growth of your own hair or to learn more about the replacement or restoration, Hair Club's professionally trained stylists, hair health experts, and consultants will craft a personalized solution to ensure you feel your best and get the most out of your hair. And right now, just for listeners of this show, if you go to hairclub.com/Chael today, you will get a free hair analysis and take home a free hair care kit. That's a $300 value. Again, that's hairclub.com/Chael for a free hair analysis and a free take home hair care kit to see for yourself just how powerful great hair can be. Experience your hair and your life at its best, only with Hair Club.
Now, back to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen.
Guys, we've got a real treat. The single greatest, most accomplished wrestling coach in the history of the sport, obviously, is Dan Gable. Dan Gable recently has been immortalized through artwork. And if you guys want to see the painting, which is also available in affordable print, go to the artist's website, Mike Kupka. That's www.mikekupka.com. Check it out. And speaking of Dan Gable, the coach is with us now. Coach, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing real well. Thank you.
Well, this is a tremendous honor for me. I'm very happy to be talking to you. And if I may dive right into the World Championships, did you go out to Budapest?
I certainly did. I think it was my 6th trip to Budapest.
They say underrated city, by the way. Would you agree with me on that? I actually went last year for an MMA event. I could not believe how beautiful that town was and that nobody ever talks about it.
I certainly have been back 6 times, so I'm talking about it right now.
Well, but
I love it.
But, Coach, as wrestlers, we got to go to Weir's place. We got to go to Kyrgyzstan. We got to go to Kakistan. We got to go to Bulgaria. You don't always get lucky. And I felt like that's what I was walking into personally when I went to Budapest. Nobody had ever talked about it. I could not believe how gorgeous that town was.
And I feel pretty safe. I mean, a lot of places you might have to look over your shoulder, but I was very comfortable.
Funny you should mention that. I went with my wife, and there was armed guards all over the place, and that gave her an uneasy feeling. I'm going, no, honey, it's given me just the opposite. I love that there are armed guards everywhere. That makes me feel great walking around this place.
Absolutely. When I went to Tehran, Iran, back in, I think, like late 90s, I think it was like 99, maybe 98. I got on the bus every day with the team, and I was one of the head coaches, and we took a route and went to the arena, and that was, the first session, first day. Second session, first day, we got in there, and I thought he was getting lost or something, but he ended up at the same place. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. Finally, about the fourth day, I asked him, I say, why are you taking all these different ways to get to the same place? And he had a foreign accent, and he just looked, he said, because I want to make sure that you don't get blown up.
Oh, wow.
And I said, whoa. Okay, that's fine with me.
That's exactly right. Mr. Driver, we will do it your way. Confronted with this new piece of evidence, we will do it your way.
That's right.
All right, so let me dig into the World Championships, Coach. First thing out of the gate, and I did not get to go. I wanted to go, but I didn't go, but I watched every minute. I was up at 1:30 in the morning when the feed started. I saw every match of every style. But right out of the gate, as a viewer, as a guy that's sitting at home, I will tell you, I think UWW, if nothing else, has presented wrestling in an extremely professional way, and they deserve credit. Would you agree with that?
For sure. Compared to where we were 3 or 4 years ago when we were off the docket for 6 months, we didn't really lose a whole lot. We only gained for being off there. Even though we were voted out, we got voted back in, but we finally worked together as a team. We're individuals. We're wrestlers. And finally we got up a team that was beyond just wrestlers. It was former wrestlers that are moved up into the business world. It was countries getting along with each other. I mean, Iran and Russia, these countries don't exactly, get along politically with the United States. But all of a sudden, the wrestlers who have been getting along somewhat, except for during their matches, really put their pieces together, and all of a sudden we had something that we'd never had before. We had people that realized that, hey, this is serious business. We're going to get kicked out. We're the first sport in the Olympic Games, and we're not going to be in the Olympic Games anymore. We're going back to the ground level. We're going to scratch, and we're going to have to start all over. So in 6 months, it was a great feeling for listening to all these different people. The only thing, it's still not a complete done deal. I mean, when you've been working one way for a long time and taking things for granted in leadership, then you have to make sure that leadership goes the other direction, not just for 6 months, not for a year, but for a long time, forever. And then you'll have not to worry. So we got to still keep our ear to the ground and listen and do a lot of great things. We had to bring in and focus more on female wrestling, even though we had done that at the international level quite a bit. But it was one of the important areas, and we had to take it very serious, and they did that as well.
Sure. Now, when you look at this year's team, and let's switch to specifically freestyle, it is said that is the greatest American team ever. What is interesting, and why I tend to agree, what's interesting is we were world champions last year. We believe that this is a better team, but we came up with silver. I have been asked by people, how does that work, Chael? How does what you said just, Coach, I don't know how the points work. In the NCAA, I'll tell you how you can get a point. I'll tell you how you can get a point deducted for unsportsmanlike. I tell you everything about the points in the NCAA. I still don't know how the hell they keep score for this international wrestling. Are you fully up to speed with what scores points for your team?
You know what? No. And the reason why, because it's been one way, and I fully knew the other way. This year was all new, and it's really it was very more complicated. It seemed to work out, but it's not as easy, and maybe it's good because the other one was so simple that it was ridiculous because you didn't get any bonus points for how you wrestled. A pin was the same as a 2-1 decision, stuff like that. So this year was the first year that they've ever put a little excitement into the scoring. Now, how they did that totally, I can't tell you that yet, but it's because it's the first year and it's very complicated. But it seemed to work pretty well. The old one for many years, forever, was just if you get first place, you get 10 places, and if you get first place as a individual, you get 10 points, and if you get 10th place, you got 1 point. So that was pretty easy to understand. But this one, they actually incorporate a little bit more of the art of the sport, just like that painting you talked about. A lot of artistic type of ways to score team points and so on and so forth. So, I still got to do a little more homework on that, and I'm sure they're going to change it based on first year only because that's the way they work. They'll look and see the bugs, and they'll take them out, and it'll get a little better. And that's just shows you what we've been doing lately. They've been actually working on our sport for the promotion of our sport instead of just taking advantage of how much money they were going to get from the International Olympic Committee, how many places you get to go to see in the world, and so on and so forth. So, the people are working a little bit harder at it, and, it's pretty good. But let me tell you, the Russians, they don't like losing. They don't lose often. And they probably won 55 titles in the last 75 years or something like that. And when they got beat last year, and especially on that last match in the last 10 seconds with Snyder and Sadulayev, that was a lot of pain because it doesn't come just like out of our colleges and high schools and out of our states, like in the United States. Wrestling in the Soviet Union, I said the former Soviet Union, Russia comes right out of Putin's office. And with that in mind, that means a lot. And so they went to work. If you look at our team, and you think we had a great team this year, which we did, but what we didn't do was we didn't get some of our guys to come through at the highest level that were our best guys. For an example, Snyder, and Burroughs, they both got second and third. And you know what? That's pretty good in the world, but they're used to first. And they got first last year. And that's quite a bit of point scoring differences, especially this year. But what we did do is we fired up some of the guys that hadn't been in there, like Dake and, and Taylor, and those types of guys. And, our 3 world champions actually hadn't been world champions before, and 2 of them hadn't even been in a world championships. So we got to take a little bit of what the Russians did last year. They went to work. We got to get all 10 weight classes clicking. Every guy's got to be motivated. Coach Bill Zadig, who's a former athlete of mine at the freestyle team, I think he'll look at that and see who performed well. Sometimes when you perform really well, you kind of sit back a little bit, especially today. When now you get, pretty good paycheck. Back in the old days when you got a slap in the butt, you might have went back to work because it was going to be how you did for your whole profession in life. But right now they get a pretty good paycheck if they, medal and win. And sometimes you have a tendency to let up, and we can't do that, especially when we only have 6 weight classes coming up in the Olympic year. We got to get so much authority that we can get 10 weight classes back. So I'll let you talk.
Hey, I love that, and I love what you're saying. When I started in this sport, it was in 1988. I was 9 years old. But to your point, we had 10 weight classes, and I watched it cannibalize itself down. And I remember when they went to 6, a big statement that was made by you. And you said, if you're going to go any less than 6, just get rid of it. That you have to make sure you offer our athletes opportunity. And I remember that was years ago when you said that, and all the things that you've said, I can quote that one accurately because everybody looks around and goes, Coach is right. There's of anything that we get in wrestling, which isn't much, it's intrinsic value, it's hard. You must be able to provide some opportunity. Coach, I got to ask you about and then we'll get into the painting, but I got to ask you about something real fast. So when I start talking international wrestling with people, I will notice a lot of blank faces in the room. I am a hardcore fan. I go to flowwrestling.com every day. I go to themat.com every day. I know these foreign guys, but a lot of other people don't. They love the domestic tournaments. And as we do look ahead to something that you just said, which is 2020, where, if you could predict, where is Kyle Dake, since he's, right, world weight, non-Olympic weight, where is Kyle Dake going to go? Is he going to go up against Taylor, or is he going to go down against Burroughs?
Hey, if you're tough enough, you can go wherever you want. But let me tell you, when you got world champions at a weight very close to you, below, and then you got world champions very close to your weight, just above, you know, you're going to have to decide just where you are, how tough you are, and where your right weight is. You know, it's you know, right now I would say if I was just with him out here, we have a new league, the AWL, that they're just starting to put together as a pro league, but I don't know, you know, we don't know if it's going to go or not yet, but I was just talking to him, and, you know, I stood beside him, and, you know, he's a well-built kid. But he's not much bigger, you know, than me in terms of height, maybe a couple inches. But, you know, he probably can make that lower weight where Burroughs is. And Taylor, when you start getting up there, when that kilograms start adding up, when you jump up 7 kilograms, which is, you know, 7 times 2.2, 14, 15 pounds, you know, that's, or more than that, you know, it's sometimes hard to beat those guys. But you got to also look at, if you have to lose some weight a little bit, you still got to take into consideration that if you don't do that right, then you're going to be affected by it, and then all that work for going down a weight is not going to be effective either. But I would say Dake probably will have to go head-to-head with Burroughs. But my goal, and again, I'm kind of crazy a little bit from a standpoint of people tell me you don't even pursue that. Well, I got to pursue that because I don't know when I'm going to get it if I don't pursue it. So, you know, I'm hoping that the Olympic Committee changes their mind and gives us 10 weights, or maybe gives us 8 weights. But, you know, I know they say you can't do it. But what do you mean? Why can't I do it? Why can't everybody else do it? You know, we went from 10 to 8 to 7 to 6. I mean, why can't we go back up to 10 if we get strong enough, if we get authoritative enough? And there's some countries in the world that are pretty darn strong, 180-some countries that wrestle, and there's some pretty big countries involved with it. When you talk about the United States, when you talk about the Olympics, that's the number one country that really can push the Olympic Games. But then you got Russia, which, hey, they're pretty powerful. Iran is they're a pretty powerful country when it comes to political world. So, hey, anything can be done. And for me, I would love to see us move as quick as possible to get to those weight classes, and that's where I'm at. And nobody's going to talk me into 6 weight classes.
Look,
so go ahead.
I like where you're at there. And, you know, there was a tremendous sign that I don't know if a lot of people picked up on. But we also, as much as the weight classes went from 10 to 8 to 7 to 6, we also went from 3-day competitions to 2-day competitions to 1-day competition, but now we went back. They changed the rules from 1 day to 2 days, and I don't think a lot of people realize that was a good sign, because now you're talking about doing business. You're talking about filling up an arena for an entire week, and they did have a couple of sellout sessions there, and I don't have a final thought on that. But just expanding on what you said, if we're going to move the dates where we were cannibalizing ourselves and get them in and get them out, and that's it for the boys, see you next year. Extending that, the next step is to extend the opportunity, which is the weight classes. So I like that you're on that plight. I hope it happens. I do want to finish by just asking this final question, though, since we did Dake. Where would you predict Jaden Cox in the world that we don't have the added weight? Is Cox going to go up and challenge Schneider, or is he going to go back down and take on Taylor? Just a guess.
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I think it's all going to depend on who really is developing between Taylor and Snyder. Who's all of a sudden looking like they're on a roll? Who's all of a sudden taking the world and saying, nobody's moving me off my throne. You know, right now Snyder's off that throne, but the bottom line is I think that will be determined later by where we are a little bit less effective, which will probably be after next year's World Championships in Kazakhstan or wherever that is.
All right. I got you. And, yeah, only time will tell. It's just as a fan, it's so fun to speculate. You can only dream about some of those big matches. All right, Coach, you have been honored throughout your life, through your hard work, through winning things, through going out in there and grit, but you have now been immortalized, and this is a tremendous honor. And the artist Mike Kupka, and I hope I'm saying his name right, but it's a little hard one, much like my name of Chael, okay? Kupka. It's so Mike Kupka has immortalized you through artwork. It is absolutely fantastic. How did this come about?
I'll tell you what. There's some people that really are kind of business people in a way, but they're looking out there and they're involved in some things that what's next going to be the hot item, what's something out there that we can do well and we can actually promote what somebody loves as well as what we can do for people. You know, that painting, honest to God, there's 30 hours or more of speeches in that painting. I mean, there's so much importance that people don't even know and don't understand, and they wouldn't be able to until I actually tell them. We do a pretty good job of telling them some of the things, but the big figure in there is just me pointing, and I'm pointing to everybody. I'm pointing to me. I'm pointing to you. And that means if you want to be somebody in this world and you want to do something, you can't be stalling around. You got to be working hard at it. And if you're not doing that, you're basically, I'm calling you out on it because you have been given a gift. And if you don't utilize that gift, you're not going to have and feel what you really should feel in life, and that's what that means. I'm actually calling my own guy for stalling on that finger point. But the art of the fight kind of involves the American style and the Russian style, and that's an hour speech as well. So anyway, there's so many things, and all the people in the background are people in my life. That's the match in the Olympic Games, the one where I'm wrestling. I'm actually using the Russian style instead of being aggressive, which I was earlier in the match. But now I had to learn how to win a match in the end when it's a tough match, and that's where the art comes in. And the fight is actually what Americans usually do. The Russian could have used a little more fight, but obviously I'm just glad he didn't have it. So anyway, that's just part of it, and I really think that once people get the brochure that goes with it, and if they ever hear me talk about it, you could look at that every day and probably get a little more miles out of yourself.
Coach, I would be remiss if I did not ask you, which athlete was stalling? You said it was your own athlete. Who was it?
Well, I don't know if I want to put him on the on the mark, but it was way back in the early days. Back in the early days, in the early late 70s, early 80s, there was a kid named Tim Riley. And I'm telling you, he was a 3-time All-American for me, but he was good enough to be the national champ. But more than that, I loved to watch the guy wrestle. He had unbelievable skills. He had foot sweeps. He had headlocks. He had high crotches. He had single legs. And he had whip overs. And, but he would hardly ever do them until the referee would call him for stalling. And so my tactic, which was the art, was to get the referee to call him for stalling. So the referee would actually look over to me and see me calling my guy for stalling. He'd walk over by me, and he'd say, "Are you calling your own guy for stalling?" I said, "Yes, I am. And the sooner you call him, the more chance that I have for him to win." So that's kind of that story behind that one.
I am familiar with Tim Riley. That's a tough son of a bitch. He will not mind being pointed out. That guy can handle it. If there's anyone that can handle himself, it's Tim Riley.
Well, he's doing well now, and so I'll tell you what, he hasn't stalled in life, and that's very important.
He's out there pushing. Coach, this was a tremendous honor. We will all definitely go to the website, Mike Kupka, MikeKupka.com. We will check out the art. I want to thank you tremendously. This was truly a honor for me. Thank you, Coach.
Hey, Chael, I really appreciate it. I wanted to even get into you a little bit, but I just appreciate you being involved in amateur wrestling. And I don't know if you ever had to wrestle full hard or not or anybody like that, but from Iowa, and I wanted to talk about Oregon sometime. So we do have a lot to talk about. But because I'm still mad at the University of Oregon for dropping the sport. But anyway,
hey, Coach,
take care, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Coach, I got to tell you this real fast. Since you asked, some of the hardest matches I ever had were against Lee Fullhart, and he would not say the same. They weren't hard. They were hard matches for me. He just had a certain intensity, and I would meet up with him at hard points. I would meet up with him in the semifinals of the Midlands, by example. I mean, I beat many All-Americans just to get to him. It would be a blowout. He had a type of a strength. And I can tell you, me as an athlete, there was certain things that were debilitating for me. And before it even got in conditioning and toughness and technique, there was strength that at times I would feel and just go, okay, this is not going to go well. And he brought that. He had that kind of strength. But the reason I want to talk about him isn't for that match. I lost touch with him. I went on the international scene, and we would travel. He'd be doing freestyle. I'd be doing Greco. I had a good enough relationship with Lee. He's disappeared from the map about 15 years ago. Do you know where he is?
Yes, I do. And one of the reasons I believe he was because he was a little disappointed in himself, actually, for not coming back and winning a national title after he won it his sophomore year. I mean, he was close. He was second. He was third. But, you know, some of these guys, it takes a long time. He actually is he went down and was on the border patrol for the United States, trying to keep some of the people that coming across the border down in, I believe, in Texas or Arizona and those types of things. So he's involved with the law and law and order. That's what he does.
Well, if there's anybody that you'd want protecting you, it's Lee Fullhart. But life is good. He's a happy guy. All of those things.
He's a happier guy now than he was probably when he left here.
Gotcha.
You know, because he won his first national title as a sophomore, and then he only made it to the finals. You know, and he only made it to the third place match or something. So he carried that with him for a while, and I think he's doing pretty well being married and, you know, having a family, and he's an Iowa kid. And,
you know, you had brought up the University of Oregon a moment ago. I was there. I got done in 2001. I believe they dropped in 2006. I might have to check that date, but might have been 2007, but I'm very close. And one of the driving forces we had behind Save Oregon Wrestling, if you will, was Coach Ron Finley. And we lost Coach Finley about 18 months ago, and it has hurt the movement. I can just share that with you as far as the grassroots and the driving force and somebody that people respected. And if he called a meeting, everybody would show up to. Those reins have been passed, but it isn't the same. He was a tremendous leader, and he's gone. And it is going to hurt the growth of the program, which I do believe will be back someday, but I think that slowed it down in fairness.
Absolutely. Ron Finley was a very close friend of mine. He loved me, even though he was, I think, on the other side, mostly Greco-Roman wrestling a lot. But he was on our side as well, the freestyle side somewhat. He definitely worked with me. And, you know, the University of Oregon is very closely associated with Nike over the years, and Phil Knight and, you know, that type of stuff. And so, you know, they actually, USA Wrestling now, the official sponsorship is Nike, and they're wearing a lot of that Nike around. And I think that since it originates right out of Oregon, they ought to look at the sport that's taking it to the top right now.
It seems only fair. All right, Coach, thank you, and congratulations on this, by the way. This truly is an honor, what Mike has done for you, and it's well-earned, and let's be in touch.
Well, I appreciate that. It's the paintings for everybody. Thank you.
Awesome. See you, Coach. All right, Dan Gable. If you guys, I'm going to trust that most of you have heard the name Dan Gable, but I also am aware that when I go off on amateur wrestling over here, I lose some of you. Somebody kind of roll your, what's he doing? He's always talking about that damn amateur wrestling. I want to see the pros. I'll take the amateurs, but not until they make it into the cage and start fighting. I'll tell you, that gentleman is a legend, and in this regard, not just because of his success, he changed the sport of wrestling, which his ideologies now carry over to mixed martial arts. But I'll tell you in this way, it wasn't just because of his success. Now, I should mention, I think I took for granted for you guys, he's the Olympic champion. He won the Olympic Games in 1972. He won the NCAAs on multiple occasions. He's actually very famous in this way. He lost his final college wrestling match. He had never been beaten. He lost his final college wrestling match after his final wrestling match. Comes back, wins the Olympic Games, goes into coaching. I don't know how many national championships he won. I don't know. I believe it was 14, but it was like 11 in a row. It was just something insane. Retires on top, just does everything right, and then continues to help wrestling back up. The reason a lot of guys have won Olympic championships in a lot of different sports. That's not enough to make you worldly famous and have artwork made after you and have a guy like me on a show that's genuinely flattered and thrilled to have you on. It's not enough. Here's what he did. He's tougher than all hell. And he changed, you don't just get to be tough because you're an Olympic champion. There's a lot of Olympic champions that were just really good. And quite frankly, that will take you to the highest part of sport. If you are really good or you are really tough, you can win that belt. You can win that gold medal. You can win that championship. He was both, but he was the first to put an emphasis on being tough. I will put technique second. I will put grit and heart and will in front of everything else. And he changed the sport in that regard. When he was talking about stalling is a collegiate wrestling term for if you are not engaging, if you are wearing down, if you are stalling, you're not trying to create action. In fact, you're trying to shut the match down. Maybe you've got a lead, and now you're trying to eat up clock. In fighting, both mixed martial arts and boxing, that's allowed. You guys have seen Floyd Mayweather? Floyd Mayweather may not take a step forward in the entire fight. Fair game. Doesn't have to. Not required. Same thing goes with mixed martial arts. In wrestling, particularly at the collegiate level, if you back up, you are now stalling. You must either stand your ground or go forward. Very hard to do. Very hard to do with another trained killer for 7 straight minutes. Coach Gable is the one who made this famous, who made it about will and grit, and every single match was going to test the other person's conditioning. He was going to test your lungs and make sure that his was in front of yours through ample amount of hard work. And he got credit for that as an athlete, but it really got exploited when he became a coach and some of the workouts that they would do at Iowa. They would run stadium stairs. Okay, great. Well, as soon as the word gets out on that, what's everybody else going to do to catch Iowa? They're going to run stadium stairs. Well, when that gets back to Coach Dan Gable, that everybody else is running stadium stairs, his team's now going to run those same stairs, except they're going to put a partner on their back. But I'm just offering you guys an example. This is where it went. So everybody that wrestles, whether you wrestled for him or not, has the Gable mentality and the Gable awareness that I must be in better shape than my opponent. Oh, and by the way, if I'm not as good as my opponent, but I can take this to a point where conditioning is now a factor, I don't need to have a better shot. I don't need to have a better snap down. I don't need to have a better body lock. I can just break him by using that pressure. And that is something that even, and maybe more relatable for you guys who are largely mixed martial arts fans, that is what Randy Couture brought to the sport before anybody else did. Randy Couture was one of the first guys, if you go back to the 90s, that was a world-class athlete, not just a barroom brawler or something like this where the sport was kind of marketed back then. He was a world-class athlete, but he also understood the importance of conditioning. I am going to stay on you. And if you beat on me, I'm going to stay on you a little longer. And if you continue to beat on me, I'm going to stay on you a little bit longer. Now, where the sport is at in 2018, most of you are going to go, well, yeah, isn't that kind of known? Okay, fair point by you. But also fair point by me to point out that no, in 1972, when Coach Dan Gable won his Olympic championship, that was not known. That was a hidden secret. Only he knew that. No programs trained that way. No countries trained that way. He was able to bring that. He was able to weaponize pace, and he was the first one in sport, not just in our sport. He was the first one in sport to weaponize pace. Now you will see it all the way up to very good football teams. Very good football teams won't call timeout. They'll jump on that ball. They'll push it. They'll push it. They'll push it, and they'll catch you in the fourth quarter. You're now seeing other teams and other sports doing that. I'm just letting you know, in absolute fairness, where that mentality came from. And even though it's transcended and nobody wants to give him credit, it started with him. And when he had the gold medal, now all of a sudden he had a platform. Now all of a sudden people want to turn and go, hey, how'd you win that gold medal, by the way? And sure, he can show you how to bend his knees and do a setup and get to one leg and transfer to two and get an opponent. He can show you how the rules and the scoring system works. But what he was keeping private was the mentality behind it, that if you have an absolute perfect technique, and I've got a pretty good technique, but you can hit yours once and I can hit my pretty good one 5 times, I am likely to score in front of you. Simple, basic, and you just heard from the best to have ever done it. Wild guess, but you like saving cash, right? You know what's even better? Saving hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. And the best thing is you can do it all from home in 15 minutes by going to geico.com. You could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. Extra money in your pocket? It just might be the most rewarding thing you do today. So, little bit of news, and I know that I'm a day late here, but what do you want me to do? I record on Wednesdays. Ben Askren going to be taking on Robbie Lawler. Okay, great. I need to know what the thought process was on this. And I will tell you why I say that. The thought process on this is what's going to captivate me one way or the other. Thank goodness that Ben Askren has finally worked through all of these things, right? I mean, if anyone deserves it, and he did say this is what he wants to do, so let's let him have what he wants. However, Ben Askren has been teased over the years. He has been tormented over the years. Now he lands in the UFC, and he remembered everything that everybody ever said about him. So now it's time for Ben to get a little payback, of which he was enjoying very much. As a matter of fact, not very many people are so quick to speak up about him, except in the same way that they have been over the years, which is guys in other promotions are now wanting to call him out now that he's in this specific promotion. Okay, fine. That's just something he's going to have to live with. But along that vein, there was some guys that were barking back. There were some guys that were willing to bite and play ball here. Of those guys, Robbie Lawler was not one of them, past or present, meaning in the past, Robbie Lawler never put down Ben Askren, never insulted him, never called him out, never teased him, never anything, and does it now. The one thing you guys perhaps don't know about Robbie Lawler. Look, Robbie Lawler has a resting, intense face, okay? He has an angry face on even when he's as happy as can be. His resting face is that of a very intense man. If you guys ever meet Robbie Lawler, he's not going to say a whole lot to you. He's a pretty quiet guy, but he's also a he's a gentleman. Absolutely, Robbie Lawler is a gentleman. When you shut that door, which is where the fans would largely see him the most, he's as intense and ruthless and mean as anyone that's ever done it. But the rest of the time, he's a really nice guy. He doesn't put athletes down. He doesn't build up fights. He doesn't do trash talk because it's not real. It's not how he feels. He's got no problem with anybody. He just takes care of himself. He's one of those guys. Point being, what is the thought process on putting Ben in there with Robbie Lawler? And before you guys answer it, let me present to you something, okay? Is it a way to break Ben Askren in? I have heard some people say that it's a very safe fight for Ben, which it's not. Fighting Robbie Lawler is not safe for any, but I've heard this said. It's a safe fight for Ben. It's a way for him to come in. It's a way for him to establish his name. Okay, great. That's one argument. I'm not that compelled to that argument. I'm more compelled to the other side of the coin, which is Ben Askren and Dana White have never got things right. And even though they worked out this contract, they still don't have it right. And Dana White thinks that Robbie Lawler is going to come in and starch him. If that is accurate, please reveal that to us, the audience, because I will speak for the audience while speaking for myself. That is a storyline I can get behind. And if you look at Robbie Lawler, who has been in there with some killer wrestlers before, who has gone ahead and stood in there with Johnny Hendricks, who has a past with Ben Askren, who's gone in there with Matt Lindland, who is decorated from the same sport of wrestling like Ben Askren. If the leadership at the UFC is looking at this and going, hey, we haven't made nice with Ben Askren. As a matter of fact, that's why he's going to fight Robbie, because Robbie does real well with wrestlers. Let us know if that is the sign of the coin, even if that sounds like anti-promotion, even if they're going to have to deal with a headache with Ben Askren, who's going to fire back and go, hey, guys, I thought we worked things out. I don't care as a fan. As a fan, let me in on it, because I think that that is a more likely scenario as to why this match is happening. I do not believe for a second that anybody is looking to let Ben have a safe fight, of which Robbie is not. But I don't think anybody is looking out for Ben, and I'm okay with that. Don't ever forget, the biggest draw in WrestleMania of all time was Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon. There is something very wonderful when a promoter and his athlete don't mix. And even though it can be rough for them and they got to go figure it out, for the rest of us as fans, there is something compelling there. Just do not shy away from it. Let us in on it. Because if that is the reality, and I don't know that it is, but if it is, and Dana White came out and said as much, I've been having to hear from this guy for 5 years now. I've had my ups and downs with this guy for 5 years now. I'm now going to show this guy why he hasn't been in the UFC. I'm going to show him right out of the gate how the boys in Vegas do it. I will sit back, pop the popcorn, and push the buy button. Here's some helpful tips maybe you weren't aware of. A coffee filter and a little bit of olive oil can clean your car's interior. Removing excess weight from your vehicle will improve your gas mileage. Putting your floor mats under your tires in the winter can help you get your car out of the snow. Well, let me tell you one more tip maybe you didn't know. TrueCar also helps people to buy used cars. That's right. TrueCar isn't just for buying brand new vehicles. With their certified dealer network and nationwide inventory of nearly 1 million used cars, you'll enjoy real pricing on actual inventory and a simpler buying experience, whether you're buying new or used. And now with TrueCar, users can see what others paid, so they know if they're getting a good deal before buying. They're also more likely to enjoy a faster buying experience by connecting with TrueCar certified dealers. So when you're ready to buy, new or used, check out TrueCar and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features not available in all states. Guys, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your day. Be back on Friday. We got another big one. Until then, I am Chael Sonnen, and you are welcome.
Thanks for listening to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Hey guys, it's Jack Vanek from the Lady Gang, and I'm sitting here with true crime TV producer and my best friend, Alexis Linkletter, and we are so excited that we are finally launching our true crime podcast called The First Degree right here on Podcast One.
And each week, we are going to bring you the craziest true crime stories and talk to the people who are 1 degree away from each of these crazy events.
And we've dragged crime journalist Billy Jensen along for the ride, and he can't get rid of us.
Join us on The First Degree every Wednesday on podcastone.com and the PC One app.
Also remember to rate and review.
Technology Truths, brought to you by Geico.
Technology Truths.
Truth. Teenagers can communicate entirely in emojis.
How was the birthday party? Pizza slice, kitten, soccer ball, pineapple?
Truth. It's so easy to switch and save on car insurance at geico.com.
What are you talking about? Paperclip, shoulder shrug, high five, wizard hat? What?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
As a young boy, Gavin loved playing football. He lived and breathed it, wanted to go pro. Why, he'd spent hours upon hours just practicing his touchdown dances. And one day, while getting fitted for bifocals, he realized he was never much good at throwing, or running, or catching, or even kicking. Yeah, Gavin's chances of playing pro football were looking like 4th and long. Very long. But he did hear how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. Then he did kind of a touchdown dance. At least he was still good at that.
12 killed in bar massacre. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. A survivor of last night's shooting in a Thousand Oaks, California bar relived a terrifying scene. He was also in Las Vegas when a gunman opened fire on a country music crowd, killing 58. Brendan Kelly made it out of the back of the bar last night. 12 others died before the shooter, Ian David Long, a former Marine who served in Afghanistan, apparently killed himself. California Governor-elect Gavin Newsom.
This can't be normalized. This is just remarkable, just another day in America, but tragically now in our state.
Hundreds of homes and other buildings have been destroyed by a fast-moving wildfire that hit Paradise in Northern California. Christopher Crippen tells KGO he and his neighbors had to flee for their lives.
It was panicky, horrifying. The sky was black, and there was fire right behind our house.
I'm Tim McGuire.